on the horizon. I'm moving swiftly towards it because we're underway here in this heat of the Wargrave Challenge Cup, and Vesta Rowing Club currently with the slightest of margins, but Thames settling into a great rhythm here, Adrian.
Yeah, both crews off very cleanly. The blade works nice and clean, no issues with the steering. It does look like, as we can see, Vesta really piling on power here and really driving this crew out, trying to see how far they can get out in front before they have to transition onto their rhythm.
Yeah, really getting back up and onto it as they race down the island. It can be quite an intense bit of racing there, just you and the crew next to you in that thin bit of water before the river opens out, and they poke out the end of the island, and Vesta, that hard work they put in the first 20 strokes has paid off with a canvas lead.
Yep, they're definitely moving at the moment, so now both crews will be trying to find a way to transition. They'll rehearse this, but transition onto their race pace. You can see Thames here for a C crew. This technique is absolutely spectacular. Here Vesta out to about half a length. You see what happens when they transition onto their pace. See who's got a better cruising speed for the middle 1,600 metres of the race.
So this Thames Rowing Club crew that's trailing raced as two separate fours at Henley Women's Regatta, so more changes for them. We're looking at Vesta currently though, they're tideway rivals. Both clubs row on the championship course down in London, West London in Putney.
Vesta's a club that's really been building over the last few years. Lee Curtis Green has been sort of running the program and actually coaches this crew, has really put a lot of time and effort into making it more organised, making it more enjoyable. They have a really big group of athletes that train down there. So both clubs together across the road from each other really have a massive amount of rowers down there on Friday.
Thames Rowing Club doing a great job here of keeping in touch with Vesta. You know, the cruising speeds of these crews aren't too dissimilar at this point in time. Vesta inching away, but I just think the Vesta crew look like they've got a lot more to go, right? They're just sticking to whatever it is that they've set out to do. They're not trying to do anything special.
The thing that seems to me the difference is that the Vesta crew particularly, they put their blades in quite naturally at the front, so when they come forward the blades just disappear in the water, whereas the Thames crew, you can see the blades just seem to hang a little bit in the air before they go in, and that little bit of time makes a huge difference because the Thames crew are patiently sitting there in the air whilst the boat slows down, whereas the Vesta crew, they just cover the blades, which means they're applying power and they're moving onto the next stroke, and it's really working for them right here.
But I must say, you know, we've got to remember this Thames crew on the screen here. This is their C crew in the event, their third crew to qualify in this, you know, fairly new event, only introduced for the first time at the regatta last year in 2021. And to have that kind of depth to produce a third eight to qualify, you know, they had to go through the qualifiers to get into this event, I think is quite astounding, right?
It is absolutely amazing. I know their aspiration a few weeks ago before qualifiers was to get 100 athletes to race at the regatta. I think they didn't quite achieve that, but Zander, who coaches the club and runs it, has actually managed to do a really good job of men and women's crews. They all row the same pattern. You see a lot of national teams can't even manage to get all their crews to row the same pattern. He's managed to get one club, men and women's crews, to row the same.
That was a beautiful shot there of exactly what Adrian was talking about, those blades, those oars going into the water just so naturally and so together. You know, the synchronicity of that blade placement, oh, so important, because if you've got all 8 people doing the same thing at the same time, you know, imagine trying to all pulled separately and different blades, you'd be going all over the place, right? So it helps keep that boat moving in a pin straight line, placing all together, and just look at that, a really well together crew here from Vesta. Yeah,
really well drilled, and just everybody seems to be trying to row the same kind of way. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's actually surprisingly difficult to get everybody to do the same thing. And here this crew, really long, spending a lot of time in the water, generating good boat speed.
Yeah, so the Vesta crew, that's Charlotte Orrell in the bow seat nearest to us. In front of her, Hetty Palmer, Caitlin Kirkham, Sarah Campbell, Helen Gunn, Lydia Cronin, Francesca Lidlow, Rebecca Kelly in the stroke seat setting the rhythm, and she'll be looking at Felicity Carroll, who you can see barking those instructions there. She's got her eyes firmly set on the crew and on the finish line, no looking around whatsoever. Well, just as I say that, just a quick look back to see how much margin they've got over Thames.
Yeah, they've just passed the 3/4 mile post. She's probably just had a look to see what is the margin. Can I actually now start to back the crew off and try and cruise a little bit now? If they're far enough ahead, save the energy for tomorrow, the next race. But still, she's got the space. There we go. Quite a big margin, by the length clear water. Just coming up past the Remenham Club, and they're going to get loads of cheering. Both these crews are also members of the Remenham Club, so they're going to get a massive cheer from the Remenham there on the far side. Yeah,
you can see the flags flying at the top of the Remenham Club. Just on the left-hand side of your picture, as we pan away, you'll see both the Vesta flag and the Thames flag sailing high above that club and cheering on their compatriots. And just more of this beautiful blade work here from Vesta, Adrian. I just think, you know, a really well picked out bit of technique work from you.
Yeah, supremely well drilled, this crew, rowing really nicely. A little bit of an issue there, the steering, you can see this swishing around a bit. You can see the stern swinging out as the rudder goes on it. You see now it'll go left. The rowing boats, they don't turn like a car, they skid. The back end skids left and right, and you can see what happens when they put the rudder on.
And there's that phrase, isn't there, for rowers that, for those who aren't rowers, who don't know, the cox of this crew, Felicity Carroll, she's steering this boat with something the size of a credit card, quite literally.
Yeah, there's a fin that's a little bit bigger than that, but the rudder itself is literally the size of a credit card. And yeah, it is surprisingly difficult. And also, she can't see anything. All these people are in front of her. She's having to look around to see where they are. And she's managed the crew there, so they're settling into something that's slightly more sustainable. Whereas the Thames Sea crew are still having to really race this to try and keep it and get back on terms.
If you listen carefully, you can hear the coxes saying, ready now, you know, that. And I think it's really important, Adrian, you know, the way that they get these crews to move together, you know, they all have to commit on one stroke, don't they, to make any changes, or, you know, they have to be quite intuitive and know the cox really well to understand when that call's coming.
Yeah, the communication is key, because they all have to be thinking about the same thing. If one person's thinking about the catch and the other person's thinking about the finish, it's going to be completely disjointed. So the main role of the cox, apart from steering and not getting into trouble, is really making sure the crew is synchronizing their thinking.
Lovely to see those Vesta Lycras quite close up. In the bow seat there, you can see 1870, the year that the club was founded on the Putney Embankment, so one of the oldest clubs in the UK.
In fact, does that make it older than the regatta?
That's a really good question, Adrian.
I think it was 1829 was actually the regatta when it was founded. But yeah, it's an old club. It's been around for a very long time. It was actually traditionally a men's-only club, and then in the early 90s, they allowed women in. Now look at the benefit of that.
And just building and building, and it's only going to get bigger and better every year. The Wargrave Challenge Cup for Club Women's Eights. This the second year of its existence, and Vesta Rowing Club are going to be progressing through to another day of it here on the Wednesday of Henley Royal Regatta as they move through the line ahead of their tideway rivals from Thames Rowing Club, just a couple of doors down. But a well-rowed race all round, and excited to see what this Vesta crew can do in this event.